鼻子了。
羊鼻子大呀，您喘气儿痛快。
Now, the man to the left of your screen is Mark Rowswell. He's from Ottawa, but to tens of millions of Chinese fans, he's known as Dashan, the Big Mountain. He's a television host, an actor, a stand-up comedian. His celebrity started with a small role and grew through his mastery of Mandarin. In fact, he's usually described as the most popular Western personality in China, a truly unique position. And Rowswell is often called upon to serve as a cultural ambassador during Canadian visits to China, a role he's assuming again this week. Well, it is currently 3:31 in the morning in Shanghai, but Mark Rowswell is up and he joins us right now. Mark, thank you for getting up in the middle of the night to talk to us.
No problem. I just came back from Canada a few days ago, so I'm still in the middle of jet lag. That's the wonders of jet lag, what you can do at 3 a.m.
Well, we appreciate that bit of jet lag then. I want to begin with Justin Trudeau and the impressions the Chinese have of him and his visit to China so far.
Well, you know, I think we live in an age of celebrity culture, and Justin Trudeau, of course, plays very well into that in Canada, around the world, and including China. So he's something of an internet celebrity here as well. They've started to call him Little Potato, which doesn't make a lot of sense in English, but it's a play on his Chinese name and the fact that he's Trudeau the Junior, so he's the small one. He's the little potato. Trudeau kind of sounds like potato in Chinese. So a very good impression here. You know, young, vigorous, smart. All the sexy images online, they've seen them here as well. And the fact that he's tied, of course, to his father and the history of establishing relations with China. And the fact he's been here 3 times already. This is actually his 4th visit, but just his first as Prime Minister. So I think in general, a very positive public image. You know, perhaps the link to his father more important for earlier generations, and just the fact that he's an internet celebrity is something that plays well with the younger generation, with the kids.
So positive impression of Justin Trudeau, and also, as you say, a lasting impression of his father. How does that affect how the Chinese view Canada then?
Well, I think, you know, they already have a fairly clear picture, or at least in their mind, it's perhaps a simplistic picture, but they have a very strong image of what Canada represents. So he adds on to that. You know, he's not working from scratch here. So we come just in general having a very positive image as a country in China, and Chinese know, of course, that there are many. That China has been one of our greatest sources of immigration in the past few decades. So many Chinese in Canada, and so many links people to people that way through family. So I think in general there's a positive. You know, I also think that Canada, one of the nice things about being a middle power or a smaller nation, at least compared to the big guys like the U.S. and UK and Japan, is that. You know, when things go wrong, it's not so much front and center in the news. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's scandals about Canada-China relations, or things are down. It's not really front and center in the news. So people just sort of can a very general positive impression of Canada.
Well, that said, you know, it might be a positive impression, but people are also talking about this visit as an opportunity to reset the relationship, which seems to imply that the relationship needed some fixing. What do you think of that?
Well, I wonder if this is not just sort of a cyclical thing that we do because of changes of government, and perhaps because of the media cycle and always looking for stories. I mean, I've been in China, this is 28 years now, 30 years if you count just the first time I came as a tourist. As Dashan, my professional life as Dashan, this freelance performer, and involved in Canadian visits really since 1992 with Joe Clark. That was a reset right there. The Joe Clark came. That was our first visit after 1989 in Tiananmen Square. 1994, Jean Chrétien again hit the reset button. Things went downhill under Harper. He came back in 2009 and hit the reset button. So here we are. This is if you count it that way, this is the 4th reset I've been through, and I think maybe this is just kind of the cyclical nature of the relationship.
And when you think about the relationship between Canada and China, obviously Canada is there to try to do more business, to establish deeper roots with China. Do you think there's an openness to that in China, that Canada wants more interplay with China?
Sure, I think there's no sort of sense in China that no, we don't want to deal with Canada and go away. Chinese are quite open and welcoming and quite eager to further the relationship. They want to do it on their terms, of course. They want to do it in their own interest, just as Canada wants to develop a relationship with China based on Canadian interests. So that's quite understandable.
Mm-hmm. Now, we should also point out, because we said in the introduction, but we should also talk about it, that you do have this unique perspective, because here you are, a Canadian in China, being able to connect with millions of people in that country. Why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, because I learned the language, and I think there's a huge outpouring of appreciation, or when foreigners do learn Chinese language and culture, and when you try to integrate into their society. Also I think comedy really is an emotional thing, right? It's not intellectual. It's you feel comedy. It's funny, and you don't know why, but it's just funny. And so comedy is something that has an emotional connection. So the fact that I'm able to speak their own language, and I think one of the things about my public image is not speaking sort of proper textbook Chinese, but real down to earth, regular guy kind of Chinese. I have this sort of stereotype of being the foreigner who's more Chinese than the Chinese. They sort of sometimes think, oh, we're so internationalized now, we're going to Starbucks and watching Hollywood movies, and here's this Chinese guy, here's this Canadian guy that's more Chinese than us. It's a little bit of a cultural switcheroo like that. But I think just the fact that I work inside their culture and inside their media and try to find common ground on a person-to-person level. I mean, working through the media, of course, but through television, through comedy, you're talking directly to people in their living rooms.
Well, as you say that, I wonder if there's any direct, indirect lessons that Western leaders might take from that, because they have been trying to have this breakthrough in China for a very long time. Is there something that Western leaders miss when they try to connect with the Chinese leadership and the Chinese people?
Well, it's hard as a political leader, because you're representing your country, you're representing your own constituency, which is Canadians, not Chinese citizens, and you're also working through interpreters, and you're working through the diplomatic protocol. I think they're making a good effort now. I've been following the Prime Minister on Chinese social media, on Weibo and WeChat, which are the two main platforms here, and so they're obviously making an effort. But it's much easier for me as an individual just to stand up in front of an audience and find commonality and things that are funny, because I don't have a political agenda. And when you're a political leader, of course, you're in that diplomatic protocol. So I think they're trying very hard. I think it's very hard to compare an entertainer with a prime minister.
Well, I understand.
An entertainer somewhat. Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt there. But, I understand that you were at the same event as the Prime Minister last night. You weren't able to meet with him face to face, but you will be at another event with the Prime Minister. If you were to give any advice to Justin Trudeau, what would it be?
Well, I think, for the issues that we see in the news, the canola, this Asian investment bank, and these things, these are huge macro issues that don't necessarily, for people like me, a small business, a freelance performer, that doesn't necessarily have a direct relation on my work in China. But I think for all of us, no matter what industry we work in or what sense, just the fact of having sort of an environment of a friendly, positive relationship, not a relationship's devoid of problems, but in general that it's a constructive two-way street kind of relationship, rather than one side lecturing the other, or a very problematic, unfriendly kind of relationship. That has a big trickle-down effect. So people, of course, you're always pegged according to your nationality in China. You're Canadian, you're American, you're Japanese, and you're thought of in that construct, and you represent your country the same way Chinese feel that they represent their country when they're abroad. And so the fact that your country in general has a friendly relationship with China, I think for all of us, whatever industry you're working in, has a big trickle-down effect. And so that's why I think this hitting the reset button, it is necessary. It is actually changing the tone is actually important. It does actually have concrete benefits or impact, a concrete impact on whatever industry you work in.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for that. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. And it's It's 3:40 in the morning now in China. Maybe it's time to go to bed.
Yeah. We'll switch place next time. We'll do an interview with you at 3:40.
I won't look so pretty, but thank you.
Thank you.
And that's Canadian Mark Rowswell, known to millions in China as the celebrity Dashan. He spoke to us in Shanghai.